Bernie Sanders has been critical of the Democratic Party in the wake of the election. Nancy Pelosi and others have been very critical of him. And here he is to try once again to put the Democrats on a path to sustained victory. Take a look.
You say you think the Democratic Party has, quote, abandoned the working class. How exactly do you think Democrats have abandoned the working class, Senator?
Look, the working people of this country are extremely angry. They have a right to be angry. And then, Kristen, on top of all of that, we got a corrupt campaign finance system which allows billionaires to buy elections. So if you're an average worker out there, you're saying, hey, I'm working longer and longer hours, going nowhere in a hurry, worried about my kids, and yet the people on top have never had it so good. Where is the Democratic Party? Are they prepared to stand up to these powerful corporate interests?
So look, that is Bernie Sanders in Bernie Sanders mode. And he's pointing out that whether you like it or not, that's what a lot of people think. Okay, and I understand a lot of people who are like true blue, dyed in the blue wool Democrats don't like it. Just that is what a lot of people think. And that is likely why the election went the way that it did. Now, he is not baselessly, unfairly critical of either Biden or Harris, as we'll get to. He had good things to say about both of them, but he also is not just vaguely criticizing the Democratic Party. When you ask him what specifically might have been done to change that outcome, he can offer specifics. Take a look.
In the Senate in the last 2 years, we have not even brought forth legislation to raise the minimum wage to a living wage, despite the fact that some 20 million people in this country are working for less than $15 an hour. In America today, we have not brought, in the Senate, we have not brought to the floor the PRO Act to make it easier for workers to join unions. We're not talking about defined benefit pension plans so that our elderly can retire with security. We're not talking about lifting the cap on Social Security so that we can extend the solvency of Social Security and raise benefits. Bottom line, if you're an average working person out there, do you really think that the Democratic Party is going to the mats, taking on powerful special interests and fighting for you? I think the overwhelming answer is no, and that is what has got to change.
Yeah, and as I said, it doesn't mean that Biden can't point to things that Joe Biden did either promise or do as president. The end result, though, is that it's not enough. And maybe if the election happened at a different place, or a different time, maybe if the election was next year and you had time for the lower inflation rates to sink in or whatever, maybe that would have changed some things. But do you want the results of the election to be contingent on all of these little contextual, temporal things? Yeah. No, probably not. You'd probably like to win easily and strongly. And Bernie Sanders has been trying to explain to the Democratic Party how you can do that for a really long time. And it's not impossible to conceive of. We saw how Bill Clinton ran and how he won election. We and did some other stuff along the way, but we saw how Obama ran and won re-election. We know the sorts of things that people are crying out for. Will we at long last offer them? Francesca, what do you think?
I mean, I think we saw the writing on the wall years ago in 2021 when, the Democrats obviously not only riding high off of the victory of Joe Biden, but also the utter lawlessness and the violence coming from the Trump side there was a mandate there, right? And we saw, proposals put forward like raising the federal minimum wage and immediately tanked by corporate Democrats. So there's a number of things going on here. One is we have terrible Democrats. Luckily, the two that were obstructionists that are the reason that the Build Back Better plan of Biden's was never actually implemented, Manchin and Sinema, are no longer. So I know that it looks like Democrats, they have lost seats. But honestly, if you can gain a Gallego, if you can, which we'll talk about later, but if you can gain some Democrats who are actually Democrats that are willing to work with their own freaking caucus, that's good, right? So it's like, we may be weak now, but the fact that we can trade in your Sinema for the Gallego, this is progress. So I just want to remember and remind people that of the fact that we were stopped by our own party, by the Democrats were stopped by their own party. That's number one. Number two is they were stopped by some sort of adherence to this fictitious idea that change needs to happen over many, many, many years. And you could never directly help people. And after the American Rescue Plan, which was awesome, included things like the child tax credit. After that, there were no more ideas. And things like putting the minimum wage increase into the finance bill, basically, right? The government funding bill, that was chanted down by the Senate parliamentarian. Now, the Democrats could have just replaced that parliamentarian and been like, sorry, we want to pass a minimum wage increase right now for all Americans. Goodbye. And they didn't. And you're just like, all of the reforms, the reason I say that the writing was on the wall is all of the reforms that Biden did do, the Inflation Reduction Act, right? The CHIPS Act. These things are obscure, they're difficult to explain, and they don't affect everyday Americans. A lot of these things were, handouts to corporations to do things like green energy. I'm not saying that's bad, or to do things like, manufacturing, chips manufacturing, right? And semiconductors and things like that. That's good. But that's not helping everyday Americans pay their rent or pay their groceries, or lowering the cost of living and raising their minimum wage. Like, these are all much more abstract. And the only things that he did do that were really concrete, like the ability to negotiate, Medicare pricing on certain drugs, those aren't going to even take place until 2026. Why do we do this to ourselves? So, John, I feel like I'm in a Memento moment. The movie Memento, where at the end, he's like putting together all the pieces and he's seeing the writing on the wall and he realizes what happened. Like, that's what I feel like. But we've seen this slow train wreck since 2021, when Democrats really refused to do anything truly transformative for the American people.
Well, I agree with that. I disagree with some things. I think that the extra jobs in the manufacturing from the CHIPS Act, I think that is the sort of thing that helps people. It doesn't help 50 million people or anything.
Right.
And it's not enough to just do that thing and then be like, oh, I did that. And in 2 years, I'm going to mention in a campaign speech that I did that. No, that's one thing that you do, and then you get back and you do it again and you do it again and you do it again, and you make it part of an argument that is like, there was a thing that someone once said. I don't remember the author it was about, and they were saying something like, I don't remember the exact quote, but it was something like, not everybody agrees that I'm popular, but nobody can dispute that I'm prolific. Like, Joe Biden could have at least been prolific, but he doesn't have the energy. He couldn't do it. He could have been out there every single day touring he could have done a 4-year tour of, yes, walking with unions, and yes, going to manufacturing places and making sure that no one can dispute that he feels their pain, and nobody can dispute that he wakes up early every day to work for them. He could have been doing that.
But also, why did he roll over for Manchin? Why not go to Bernie Sanders wrote an op-ed in a West Virginia paper, and it freaked him out. Anyway, I
agree, and we got a lot of stuff that we got to get to, but I'm just saying, if yes, Joe Manchin, cinema can vote down a bill, do you think that Trump would have just been like, oh, well, yep, I guess that's it, we lost? No, he would have flamed them. And people watching might be mad still that the bill wasn't passed, but they would know that you are not with them. Them being Cinema and Manchin, you're with them being the voters. Members make a difference here at TYT. You help make the show happen, and we see you in the chat with your loyalty badge. Click the join button to become a member today.